to introduce Grace Farwell. She is the South Bay Cities Council of Governments Homeless Outreach Project Manager. She's on the board of directors of Harbor Interface Services as well, where they lead to tackle homelessness in the South Bay. Last September, we had Jackie Bacharach from South Bay Cities Council of Governments. She's the executive director, and she spoke to us on the Regional Broadband Initiative. So this group does quite a bit, and now we have Grace Farwell, their Homeless Outreach Project Manager, talking to us today. And she will share her screen with us. Grace, there she is.
Yep. Okay, let me get my.
And I did see Jackie online with us today, so that's very nice. There we go.
There? Okay, good. Everybody can hear me. Okay, so well, I'm pleased to be here, and I know originally I think I was going to be here in November, then March, so I'm happy to be here in June. And as Ann mentioned, Jackie, our executive director, did speak earlier, and so I just wanted to refresh your memory about what the South Bay Cities Council of Governments is all about. We're a joint powers authority of the 15 cities that make up the South Bay, along with the communities of San Pedro, Wilmington, Harbor City, Harbor Gateway in Council District, LA City Council District 15, and the LA County unincorporated areas in supervisorial districts 2 and 4. And so our mission is to provide a leadership forum for South Bay local governments to act collaboratively and advocate for regional issues. And then I've identified some of our current regional programs, and I know Jackie did talk about this earlier, so transportation, environmental, sustainability, the South Bay Fiber Network, seniors, which one of my passions, and also homelessness. So I'm here today to talk about homelessness and the involvement of the South Bay Cities COG. And so I'm going to review some of the some of the county programs, and also some of this may be just a review for all of you as well. So Measure H, as was mentioned earlier, this is a countywide program. In 2017, voters approved a 1/4-cent sales tax with the goal of raising approximately $355 million annually for 10 years. And then 6 areas were identified to prevent homelessness, provide subsidized housing, increase income, provide case management services, create a coordinated system, and increase affordable homeless housing. And then there were 47 strategies that were identified that really spread across those 6 different areas. And one thing I wanted to make note of is that the Measure H draft recommendations for upcoming years are scheduled to be released on Tuesday, June 30th. They were to be released this past Friday, but now on Tuesday, June 30th, there will be a 2-week public comment period. And there's also a public webinar on July 1st. So I've indicated the website for that if anybody is interested to learn more about the draft recommendations. And then the plan is that in August, the recommendations are going before the Board of Supervisors Homeless Policy Deputies. And then in September, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, they'll have their final recommendations for future funding of what the funds are going to be covering. And then as was mentioned also, Prop HHH, so just to differentiate, because a lot of people do get confused between Measure H and Prop HHH. And so that one is city specific, and I know there was a comment made about Prop HHH. So this was approved to raise $1.2 billion in general obligation funds. And the goal is to develop up to 10,000 supportive housing units. All of the money has been earmarked for the different housing units, but as was mentioned, they're very, very slow in coming. And also the LA City controller has done an audit of this program, and it's quite interesting to read that one as well. And then these units are supposed to be supportive housing that combines affordable housing with the services, and so that's that includes mental health services, physical health services, education and job training, as well as drug and alcohol treatment. So then homelessness in the South Bay, as Lenora mentioned, we did have the homeless count. It happens the fourth Wednesday of every year in January. The results were recently released. For LA County, as Lenora mentioned, it did increase almost 13%, 12.7%. So we now are at 66,436 individuals experiencing homelessness, and that's either sheltered or unsheltered. And then in the South Bay specifically, we saw a 3% increase over 2019. So we have currently, according to the data, we have 4,560 sheltered and unsheltered individuals experiencing homelessness. So we had just under 4,400 in 2019. And then their LAHSA also releases city-specific data, and that's expected to be released sometime in July, but I never hold my breath for when that actually will be released. So hopefully it will be released. So what this is a summary of our service planning area, so SPA 8. SPA 8 actually includes Long Beach, but Long Beach does their homeless count every 2 years. And although they did it this year, their results are not included in this. So this is specifically SPA 8 South Bay. And I'm happy to add this document. I'll put it in the chat at the conclusion of my presentation so that if anybody else wants to download this or make a copy of it, you can do so. So it shows about a 3% increase overall. And then the different categories, it looks at household compositions, veterans, which have remained pretty steady in terms of their homelessness. The summary also looks at chronic homelessness, gender, race, ethnicity, age. We are seeing an increase in individuals, older individuals experiencing homelessness. It also covers sexual orientation, health and disability, and then also domestic intimate partner violence. And then I know
Grace, just to let people know, we can put this chart up, put a link of it on our website. So
okay.
Okay.
Perfect. And then, so we've been mentioning LAHSA. I know Lenora mentioned it. I just mentioned it. So LAHSA is the LA Homeless Services Authority that covers both the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles. And it's our continuum of care. There are other continuums, like Long Beach has its own continuum of care, so they receive funding specifically for their area. There's Pasadena. Glendale also has their own, can develop their own programs as well. And so really, LAHSA is the one that kind of keeps control of the funding and a lot of the services that are provided for homelessness. And then we also have the LA County Homeless Initiative, which is in the office of the LA County CEO. And then these are the strategies that they're focusing on: prevention, outreach, interim housing, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing. And I've put both of the websites there as well. And I don't know, Anne, I guess you can post the PowerPoint presentation on the website as well so that people can access the websites.
Right, we'll have the links in our newsletter.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So then one of the big areas that was funded by Measure H is the coordinated entry system. And so what is that? So there are 8 service planning areas throughout LA County. As I mentioned, we are SPA 8. We have a coordinated entry system, and it's to bring together all the existing regional programs under really one umbrella. And so Harbor Interfaith Services is our CES lead for SPA 8. And then the other, St. Margaret's Center, PATH, Mental Health America, Los Angeles, Veterans of America, LAHSA has their homeless engagement team, Sanctuary of Hope. Those are all other service providers that do perform services and outreach services, case management in the South Bay, in SPA 8. And so this is actually a flyer that was put together by our South Bay Coalition to End Homelessness. And it really talks about coordinated entry system for individuals. And so we have a harbor hub, we have a north hub, we have the beach cities hub. And again, we have Long Beach hub, but as I mentioned, Long Beach is not part of our South Bay service area under the COG. There's also a CES for youth. And so these are individuals 16 to 24. And a lot of these individuals are now starting to age out of the foster care system. And so we're trying to find services for them. We do have a Sanctuary of Hope, which is located in Hawthorne, actually does quite a bit of work with our youth as well as St. Margaret Center. And then we have CES for families. And so we have a harbor and central area hub, a north hub, and then there's a special program throughout CES dealing with domestic violence, and Rainbow Services is very involved with that, and 1736 Family Crisis Center. So these are really the resources that are available in our SPA, the different service providers that are in our SPA that are providing, that are assisting those individuals experiencing homelessness. So, and now the COG's homeless coordination of services. So through Measure H, the councils of governments throughout LA County have received coordination money. And so what we do is we work with our different cities on working with them to try to find programs that may fit within the parameters of their cities, looking at different solutions. We've also received some innovation funds from LA County. So this was a one-time amount of money that the Board of Supervisors has provided to the different COGs. Our South Bay Cities COG will be receiving, or we have earmarked for us, approximately just under $740,000. And then additionally, the COG has a special contract with PATH and for supervisorial districts 2 and 4, and they provide outreach and case management services. And so there are 3 case management teams that serve the South Bay cities. And in the PV area, in particular, normally on Tuesdays, and a lot of this is pre-COVID because COVID-19 kind of threw everything, topsy-turvy, but normally in the PV area on Tuesdays, we will have a PATH team that is trying to make contact with individuals experiencing homelessness. If they hear from people, city staff or other individuals that there may be individuals experiencing homelessness, they try to get them connected to services, trying to get them connected through the coordinated entry system. PATH also does ride-alongs with the various law enforcement agencies as well to, in some of our other areas, we have homeless encampments, or the law enforcement know where the groups of homeless individuals may coordinate. And so then our PATH representatives go out, try to make contact with them and get them connected to services. So as I mentioned, with the coordination services, we work with our cities in developing and implementation of different programs. A couple of years ago, there was money available through LA County Homeless Initiative for our cities to develop homelessness plans. 6 of our 15 South Bay cities did create these plans. And now there has been some money made available for implementation of some of these plans. So we have a beach cities coordinated effort in that they have a specified homeless services coordinator that's working just specifically in the beach cities. Both Hawthorne and Inglewood also were able to receive funding and have hired individuals to provide homeless services coordination. And so I do a lot of coordination with these service providers as well. And then we also participate in city-sponsored homeless task forces and working groups as well. And then the Harbor Interfaith, along with the other service providers, will, again, pre-COVID, put on quarterly housing and health resource fairs, and the COG has been very instrumental in getting the participation of the DMV so that our homeless neighbors can actually get a California ID, or oftentimes this information has been lost, and so that they can get a new identification. We've also been instrumental in bringing out the LA County criminal record clearing services. They have a mobile unit. And at our local events in Carson and Redondo, which are served by Cal Water Services, we've gotten their involvement, and they've provided water, collapsible water bottles, food at these different events. So that's a lot of kind of some of the things that the COG does. We also host a homeless services task force meeting for city elected officials, city staff, other service providers. I know we have representation from Assemblymember Mirasucci's staff, as well as other elected officials too. And the idea of this task force is really to try to bring innovative ideas up for discussion for our cities to really think about. Are we looking at, what type of housing might we try to get into some of our different cities? We've had presentations from Flyaway Homes, which is looking at container homes. We've had, just a number of different types of presentations. And we meet every other month on the first Wednesday of the month. And then also, I mentioned earlier that we are receiving some innovation funds through Measure H, and these are on regional focused programs. And so we're really finding that our city staff is crying almost for education and training. They want to know how to interact with individuals experiencing homelessness who, for instance, come into the parks or come into their offices. What type of resources are available? So we're in the process of working with LAHSA and the Homeless Initiative in developing education and training, and doing, we will take it further and make it city-specific training for our city staff, our elected officials, and then also businesses really have a challenge with, again, not knowing what the resources are that are available to assist them as they're encountering individuals experiencing homelessness. And then we're also excited because we're doing a pilot project, a home sharing pilot project here in the South Bay. And we are partnering with Silvernest, which is an online matching program. They have the algorithm to try to match individuals. So we're looking for homeowners who have extra rooms, 1 or 2 rooms, and then matching them with home seekers. So individuals who we're trying to get to them before they fall into homelessness. And I know that at some of our senior centers in the South Bay, again, prior to COVID-19, they would hear about individuals who have received eviction notices because maybe they've got the land, or the property owner has other family members that are moving to town and are evicting individuals, or they're changing it from an apartment to a condo. So we're really trying to come up with ways so that we can match these homeowners and these home seekers to share, to share either expenses. A home seeker could potentially rent a room for a homeowner, or possibly even provide some services in exchange for access to or renting a room. We're also looking at safe parking as a program, and this is a program where individuals who are living in their vehicles, and we have a fairly large vehicular homeless population in the South Bay, but trying to find an area, a parking lot where individuals can safely park at night and sleep in their car. And so these would be, security would be available for potentially a 10-hour period. It could start at 7 p.m. and go till 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So it could be a 10 to 12 hour security for them. We would work with a service provider to provide case management services. And so we're really looking to work with one of our cities here in the South Bay to start this program. We are the only spa in LA County that does not have a safe parking program. So it's something that we really want to bring into one of our cities. And this is not you can almost look at this as interim housing. This is not something that we want people to stay in their cars permanently. This is just a stepping stone so that they feel safe and secure to be in a parking lot and protected in that lot while we're working with them, a case manager is working with them to try to get them into some type of permanent housing. We also are going to be, with our innovation funds, looking at client aid and flex funds. And in speaking with our service providers that serve our area, they do not receive funding for individuals for motel rooms. And so what we want, like prior to, 1 or 2 nights, up to 3 nights, prior to having a housing interview or a job interview. We think it's really important to allow someone to not come directly off the street while they're meeting, going into a housing interview or into a job interview. So we're going to be providing some funds along those lines, and also funds for first and last month's rent or a security deposit. And then the other thing we're doing too is we're reviewing all of our city's ordinances related to emergency shelter or interim housing, with the goal of hopefully identifying some potential sites where there could be interim housing built in our South Bay areas. I think one of the biggest fears that our cities have is that, well, if I build any type of housing in my city, then I'm going to have everybody else flocking to my city. And that's, that's a fear that we hear over and over again. So it's something that, again, with education and training, I think we can do a lot towards increasing the understanding of homelessness and what some of the different solutions are that are out there. I don't know how many of you have heard of LAHOP, but this is the online portal, homeless outreach portal, where individuals can, like you and I, if we see someone who's experiencing homelessness, we can go to this website and actually put in information, and then it goes directly to Harbor Interfaith as our CES lead, and then they deploy outreach teams to go out and try to make contact with the individual that is experiencing homelessness. So it was launched about 2 years ago, and it's had quite a bit of success. And so then this is when should you fill out an outreach request. So if you see someone experiencing homelessness who needs help, if you notice a neighbor who seems to be struggling with their physical or mental health, who's homeless, and then you can fill out that outreach request, and then you'll alert the outreach teams, and then they'll send somebody out. So right now, because of COVID and just really looking at all the different issues that are out there on the street, they're really prioritizing for those with serious medical or mental health issues. And then when should you not fill out an outreach request? And that is if you come across a family that has minor children, because that is where 211 is implemented. And that gets you right to the coordinated entry system for families. And then of course, if you're concerned about illegal activity, contact local law enforcement. If it's medical or mental health emergencies, call 911. And one thing to be clear, that a lot of our homeless services programs are not there for individuals that are temporarily living with friends or family. They, if they're couch surfing, so it's almost like our homeless programs, you have to be literally on the street to get involved in the coordinated entry system. And then I know that there were some questions about Project Room Key earlier. So Project Room Key is a state county program that actually started in April of this year, where there was funding available. The county was in negotiation with a number of different hotel managers and owners to bring in asymptomatic individuals who were not showing any signs of COVID-19. And they're following under the FEMA guidelines. So the individuals are 65 years of age and older, and or they have underlying chronic health conditions. And the biggest issue is that they cannot self-isolate. So if there are individuals that are living in an encampment, they're not able to self-isolate at all. So they're trying to get these folks into a motel setting or a hotel setting where they can self-isolate. And we have 4 motels or hotels here in the South Bay, 1 in Lomita, 2 in Lawndale, 1 in San Pedro. And they're all partnered with a different service provider. But if there's an individual who is placed in a hotel that is already linked to case management, that case manager will follow them into the hotel. There are 3 prepackaged meals provided every day. All of the hotel rooms have a microwave so they can heat up the meal. Temperatures are taken at least 2 or 3 times a day at mealtime when the meals are delivered. And then they also have additional service providers that are available. And I know one of the questions was, is Project Room Key making a difference? And one thing that I think is very positive about this is we now have people that are like in one location. So they're easy to find, because I think that's the hardest thing is with our homeless population, they do tend to move around from place to place. And this way, the service providers can actually continue to work with those individuals, get them document ready if they have a housing interview. They can really work with them and try to get them get their medications straightened out. It's a very positive with that. Right now, the FEMA funding is on a month-by-month basis. The initial leases were for 3 months, and then the county can extend those up to an additional 3 months as well. There has been discussion, from what I understand, on the state level, and potentially Assemblymember Marisucci can address this. But our understanding is that there's approximately $550 million in the state budget that's going to be looking at coronavirus issues, and some of this could be for the purchase of hotels and motels and conversions for homeless housing. So that I think that's a real positive on that. And I think the last thing I want to say is thank you. And then the COG has a homeless services in the South Bay webpage, and we have quite a bit of information on our website. So I hope that you will take advantage of that and get connected to services or have some of your questions answered that way.
Okay, thank you very much. Great. I just want to also acknowledge, I think Jackie Barker is also online. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything? Did you want to say, or I'm sorry, I did not acknowledge you earlier.
No, you can see Grace's plate is full, and we're doing our very best to try to address these problems in the South Bay.
Her plate is definitely full, and we got a lot of questions. So I know Carol Muller has been monitoring the chat room, and maybe she could put some of the questions together, and then I'd like to move on to Al because it is getting late, and he can also answer some of these questions. So Carol, did you want to, are you unmuted?
Judy Payne had a couple of questions. I wonder if we could unmute.
I think just for time's sake, I'd rather you just put some of them together.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Sure. Well, Judy was asking, are you familiar with Family Promise of the South Bay? Apparently they work with homeless families with minor children.
Yes, I am very aware of them. And they work with the various faith organizations. So yes.
And would they be somebody that might accept children after a 211 call?
More than likely, I would anticipate yes. And I know our service providers are connected with Family Promise as well.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Who's talking?
Yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
Judy.
that's me. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you? Let me see.
Judy, we can hear you.
Yeah, they are not equipped to accept a family immediately, but they could go through the process, and if there's space, then they could they could accept a family, but it's not like a shelter where they could just come that day and get housing. Although sometimes they do provide the funds for a family to stay in a hotel for a few nights while they're applying for the program.
One other thing, a question had to do with the homeless count on the peninsula, and I participated in that count last year, and we found 0. I don't know about this year, but so.
But there's also a generic question in terms of the whole South Bay. How many homeless people have you helped into permanent or semi-permanent housing?
Well, that, so I do not have the answer for that directly, but I can definitely get that information from Harbor Interfaith as well as PATH, because they are the ones that are working specifically with individuals to get them into some type of housing situation.
Yeah, so it would be.
We have very little housing that's here in the South Bay that's for our homeless.
But it would be nice to hear the results of how many we have here in the South Bay and how many have been helped. Just as a personal thing, I saw a guy who had his sign, asking for help. And I went over to him after I had talked to you, this was months ago. And I said, with the money, I know that there's money for housing. And it was very interesting. He said, he does have housing, but he needs more money. So technically he had changed his sign to say he wasn't homeless, but he was with a home, but he just needed more money. So it was kind of interesting. Once the funding did come down, he did get housing.